I really do like seeing a lot of the new technology that's coming out, and I haven't had a chance to walk around it all yet. So I'm hoping to just be able to spend some time walking around and seeing all the new stuff that's out.
For years, Parker Schnabel was the symbol of modern gold mining. Young, relentless, and seemingly unstoppable. While others struggled to keep their operations alive, Parker kept pushing forward, season after season, pulling millions out of the ground. But behind the numbers and the confidence, something has shifted. At a moment when the stakes have never been higher, Parker has finally confirmed a massive loss. One so serious, it sent shockwaves through his crew and forced him to confront a reality he's been trying to outrun. This isn't just about gold anymore. It's about whether the price of success has finally caught up with him. The weight of expectation. From the moment Parker Schnabel stepped into the spotlight on Gold Rush, expectations followed him everywhere. He wasn't just mining gold, he was carrying a legacy. As the grandson of the legendary John Schnabel, Parker inherited more than equipment and land. He inherited belief. People expected him to succeed because failure simply wasn't part of the family story. As the years went on, that pressure intensified. Every season, the numbers had to go up. More ounces, bigger ground, riskier moves. What viewers often missed was how little room that left for error. Mining isn't just hard, it's unforgiving. One bad decision, one faulty machine, one misjudged claim can erase months of work. Parker knew this better than anyone, yet he continued to scale up. He expanded operations across different sites, managed multiple crews, and took on financial risks most miners would never consider. On the surface, it looked like confidence. Underneath, it was necessity. Staying small meant falling behind, and falling behind meant losing everything he had built. By the time the latest season began, Parker wasn't just chasing gold. He was chasing stability in a business that rarely offers it. And that made what came next even more devastating. Because for the first time in years, the numbers didn't lie in his favor. The loss that couldn't be ignored. When Parker confirmed the loss, it wasn't dramatic. There was no explosion, no shouting match, no cinematic moment for the cameras. Instead, there was silence, the kind that hits harder than anger ever could. The loss wasn't just measured in gold ounces. It was measured in time, fuel, labor, and trust. A combination of factors came together at the worst possible moment. Ground that looked promising underperformed. Equipment failures slowed production. Weather delays shortened already tight mining windows. Every problem alone was manageable. Together, they were crushing. What shook the crew most wasn't just the loss itself, but Parker's reaction to it. He didn't deflect. He didn't blame. He owned it. In doing so, he made it clear that this wasn't business as usual. This was a turning point. Crew members who had followed him for years began to feel the strain. Long hours felt heavier. Morale dipped. For the first time, the confidence that once defined Parker's operation wavered. Not because he gave up, but because reality finally demanded its due. And that raised a question no one wanted to ask out loud. Was this just a setback, or the beginning of something much worse? When the crew felt it first. Before the loss ever became a headline or a talking point among fans, it was felt on the ground by the crew. Gold mining isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's sweat, exhaustion, and belief. And when the ground stopped delivering what it promised, that belief began to crack. For Parker's crew, the days grew heavier. Long shifts felt longer when the sluice boxes came up light. Repairs that once felt routine now carried urgency, because every breakdown meant more lost time and more pressure. The energy on site shifted from determination to quiet concern. No one said it outright, but everyone felt it. This season was different. What made it harder was Parker's leadership style. He's never been one to sugarcoat reality. When the numbers came in low, he shared them. When decisions backfired, he admitted it. That honesty earned respect, but it also made the situation feel more real, more final. There was no illusion to hide behind. Some crew members began questioning their own futures. Mining seasons are short, and livelihoods depend on success. A major loss doesn't just affect the boss, it ripples through everyone relying on that operation. The unspoken fear wasn't just about this season, but what it might mean for the next one. And as the weight settled in, the crew looked to Parker not for answers, but for reassurance he wasn't sure he could give. The financial reality behind the loss. While viewers see gold totals on screen, the real danger lives behind the scenes in the costs. Fuel, equipment, leases, wages, land payments. They don't pause just because the gold slows down. For Parker, the confirmed loss wasn't just disappointing, it was expensive. Every ounce missed meant money already spent with nothing to show for it. Ground acquisition that once felt like a smart investment suddenly looked risky. Machinery that needed constant repairs became a liability instead of an asset. The margin for error shrank fast. What shook Parker most wasn't the idea of losing money. Mining always carries risk. It was the realization that his aggressive expansion left little room to absorb a hit of this size. Bigger operations mean bigger rewards, but they also mean bigger consequences when things go wrong. For the first time in years, Parker was forced to confront a question he'd avoided. Had he grown too fast? Had the pressure to outperform previous seasons pushed him into decisions that left him vulnerable? And perhaps most unsettling of all, if this loss could happen once, what was stopping it from happening again? Parker Schnabel's quiet breaking point. From the outside, Parker Schnabel still looked like the same relentless miner viewers had watched grow up on Gold Rush. He showed up early, stayed late, and made the calls no one else wanted to make. But beneath that calm surface, the loss had started to change him in ways few people noticed. This wasn't just about gold anymore. It was about responsibility. Parker wasn't a kid chasing a dream. He was a leader carrying the weight of an entire operation. Every decision now had faces attached to it. Crew members with families, contracts that didn't care about bad luck, expectations that never stopped growing. At night, when the machines finally shut down and the noise faded, that weight became louder. Parker began replaying every choice in his head. The land deals he approved, the equipment he trusted, the risks he took believing experience would be enough to protect him. Confidence slowly gave way to doubt. What made it worse was the silence. As the boss, Parker couldn't vent the way others could. He couldn't openly panic. He had to project control even when he wasn't sure he still had it. That isolation, the loneliness of leadership, hit harder than any financial loss. For the first time, Parker wasn't asking how much gold they could pull out of the ground. He was asking how much more pressure he could carry before something gave way. And the season was far from over. A risk that couldn't be undone. As the numbers continued to disappoint, Parker faced a decision that would define the rest of the season. He could scale back, cut losses, and play it safe. Or he could double down and chase a recovery that might never come. Walking away wasn't really an option. Too much money had already been spent. Too many people were depending on him to push forward. But pushing forward meant committing even more resources into ground that had already failed to deliver what was promised. It was a gamble layered on top of another gamble. Parker chose to keep going. That decision didn't come from arrogance, it came from necessity. In mining, hesitation can be just as deadly as recklessness. But the risk carried a different emotional weight this time. If it worked, the loss could be reduced. If it failed, The consequences would be impossible to hide. The crew sensed it immediately. Every breakdown felt catastrophic. Every low cleanup hit morale harder than before. The tension wasn't explosive. It was quiet, simmering, and constant. People worked faster, spoke less, and watched Parker closely for signs he might be reaching his limit. And then came the moment that made everything feel real. A single cleanup that confirmed what Parker had feared all along. The loss wasn't temporary. It was structural. And there was no easy way out. When the crew starts to lose faith. For years, Parker Schnabel had been the steady force everyone trusted. Even when the ground was bad or the equipment failed, the crew believed Parker would find a way through it. That belief was almost unbreakable. Until this season. The loss didn't just hit the balance sheet, it crept into conversations, body language, and the way people moved through the site. Longtime crew members who once joked through 12-hour shifts now worked in silence. Machines ran, but the energy behind them felt different. Everyone knew the operation was bleeding money, and no one knew how long they could keep pretending everything was fine. Parker noticed it too. He saw the looks when numbers came in lower than expected. He heard the hesitation in voices that used to sound confident. Leadership isn't just about giving orders, it's about knowing when trust is slipping through your fingers. What hurt the most was knowing the crew wasn't angry. They were scared. These weren't reckless miners chasing adventure. These were men who had staked their livelihoods on Parker's judgment. Each disappointing cleanup wasn't just a bad day at work. It was another reminder that jobs, futures, and stability were tied to decisions Parker had already made. At night, Parker replayed conversations in his head. Should he have listened more closely to warnings? Should he have walked away sooner? The questions didn't have answers, only consequences. And as morale dropped, Parker faced a terrifying realization. Once a crew stops believing, no amount of gold can fix the damage. Would Parker be able to regain their confidence? Or was the fracture already permanent? The moment Parker stopped sleeping. Success had always cost Parker sleep, but this time was different. This wasn't the restless excitement of chasing a big season. This was exhaustion rooted in fear. As losses mounted, Parker's nights became shorter and heavier. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by calculations, worst-case scenarios, and the pressure of knowing tomorrow could make or break everything. The body can handle long hours. The mind struggles when uncertainty takes over. Friends and crew members noticed changes. Parker was still present, still working, but something behind his eyes had shifted. The sharp confidence that once defined him was now mixed with something harder to hide: doubt. This wasn't just about mining anymore, it was about identity. Parker had grown up in front of the world as the kid who could do it better than the veterans. Walking away, slowing down, or admitting failure felt like betraying that identity. But pushing forward meant risking even greater losses, financially and emotionally. The pressure to prove himself again was crushing. Every decision carried weight. Every risk felt amplified. There was no safe option left. Only choices between bad and worse. And then, after one particularly brutal day, Parker admitted something to himself he had never allowed before. For the first time in his career, he wasn't sure he could win. What happens when the miner who built his life on confidence starts questioning everything? The financial reality no one wanted to say out loud. Mining has always been expensive, but this season crossed a line. The costs weren't theoretical anymore. Fuel bills stacked up. Equipment repairs drained reserves faster than expected. Land agreements that once seemed manageable now felt suffocating. Parker knew the numbers down to the dollar. He had no choice. Ignoring them wouldn't make them disappear. What haunted him wasn't just the total loss. It was how quickly things could spiral. One more bad run, one major breakdown, One decision that tipped the scales from recovery into collapse. The terrifying part was that the cameras couldn't capture the full picture. Viewers saw highlights, setbacks, and dramatic moments, but not the constant mental math happening behind the scenes. Not the conversations with accountants. Not the quiet recalculations late at night. Parker wasn't just mining gold anymore. He was fighting to protect everything he had built since he was a teenager. And deep down, he knew something else. Even if he managed to survive this season, it would change him forever. The question wasn't whether Parker could recover financially. It was whether the cost of survival would take something from him he could never get back. When walking away becomes unthinkable. Most people believe walking away is the hardest choice. For Parker, it was the opposite. Stopping would mean admitting defeat, not just to the industry, but to himself. It would mean acknowledging that experience, effort, and sacrifice still weren't enough, that the land didn't care who you were or how hard you worked. So Parker kept going, not because he was certain it would work, but because the alternative felt worse. Each day became an act of endurance. Each decision carried the silent question, is this the one that breaks us? And yet, Parker showed up, gave direction, and pushed forward with a determination that bordered on self-destruction. The cameras captured grit. What they couldn't fully show was the emotional toll of carrying hope for everyone else while losing it inside yourself. By the end of the season, Parker wasn't just older. He was heavier, worn down by responsibility in a way that no amount of gold could erase. And as the final numbers approached, one truth became impossible to ignore. This loss wasn't just financial, it was personal. The season that changed Parker forever. By the time the season reached its final stretch, Parker Schnabel knew something irreversible had happened. Even if the numbers improved slightly, even if the operation survived on paper, this experience had already carved itself into him in ways no previous season ever had. This wasn't just another tough year. This was the first time mining had truly pushed back harder than he could push forward. There was no dramatic breakdown, no single explosive moment where everything collapsed. Instead, it was quieter than that. The realization came slowly, in the small moments when Parker caught himself hesitating before making decisions that once came naturally. The confidence wasn't gone, but it had been tempered by experience, by loss, and by the understanding that success in mining isn't guaranteed, no matter how smart, driven, or prepared you are. Parker began to reassess how much of himself he was willing to give to this life. For years, mining had been everything. It shaped his identity, his relationships, and the way he measured his own worth. But now, the cost felt heavier. The pressure didn't disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. It followed him home, into conversations, into moments that should have felt like relief, but didn't. Crew members sensed the shift too. Parker was still leading, still focused, but there was a new restraint in him. He listened more. He questioned assumptions he once would have trusted. That growth came from pain, not success, and everyone around him could feel it. This season didn't break Parker, but it stripped away the illusion that sheer willpower could solve everything. And as the final cleanup approached, one question lingered in the air. What would mining look like for Parker now that he finally understood its limits? The cost? No gold can repay. When the season officially ended, the loss was undeniable. The numbers told the story plainly, but they didn't capture the emotional weight left behind. Parker had lost money, yes, but he had also lost sleep, peace of mind, and a piece of the fearless confidence that once defined him. Yet something else emerged in its place. This experience forced Parker to mature in a way no early success ever could. He now understood that leadership isn't just about winning. It's about carrying responsibility when things go wrong. It's about facing your crew, your family, and yourself when the outcome isn't what you promised. Publicly, Parker didn't dramatize the loss. He didn't make excuses. That restraint spoke louder than any statement could. He accepted the reality of the season, owned the decisions that led there, and quietly began preparing for what came next. Mining would continue, but not blindly. From this point forward, Parker approached the ground with more caution, more strategy, and a deeper respect for how quickly things can turn. The boy wonder who once shocked veterans with raw ambition had become something else entirely, a leader shaped by failure as much as success. And as fans watched him move forward, one truth became clear. This wasn't the end of Parker Schnabel's story. It was the moment he stopped chasing gold at all costs and started chasing sustainability, survival, and balance. But would that new version of Parker be enough to reclaim what was lost? A different kind of gold. Gold Rush has always been about more than metal pulled from the ground. It's about pressure, ambition, and the human cost of chasing something just out of reach. Parker Schnabel's massive loss wasn't just a setback, it was a turning point that forced him to confront the reality behind the dream. In the end, the most valuable thing Parker gained wasn't gold at all. It was perspective. The understanding that success isn't defined by one season, and that sometimes the hardest lessons come wrapped in failure. If this story proves anything, it's that survival in the goldfields requires more than skill. It demands resilience, humility, and the strength to keep going, even when the ground gives you nothing in return. And as Parker steps into the future, the question remains for all of us watching. What would you sacrifice to chase your dream? And when would you know the cost is too high? If you found this story meaningful, take a moment to reflect, share your thoughts, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the untold realities behind the lives you think you know.